In various religious and philosophical beliefs, the soul is seen as the spiritual core of an individual, encompassing their unique characteristics, traits, and experiences. It is thought to be a non-physical part of a living being that can continue to exist beyond death. While the idea of the soul is mainly associated with humans, it can also be connected to animals and inanimate objects, such as in animism. Artists often illustrate the soul as departing from the body. The term soul in modern English originates from Old English words like Saul or Saul. It was first used in the 8th century with varying meanings based on the situation. In King Alfred's translation of The Consolation of Philosophy, the soul was described as the non-physical, spiritual, or thinking part of a person, distinct from their body. In the Vespasian Psalter, the word soul meant life or animate existence. The Old English term Saul is connected to similar words in other ancient Germanic languages. For example, in Old Frisian, seal or sel could represent soul, salvation, or solemn oath. The Gothic language utilized Siwala, while Old High German featured Sulla or Sila. In Old Saxon, the word was Siola, and in Old Norse, it was Sala. Today, related terms can be found in languages like Dutch, where soul is ziel, and in German, where it is seal. The links between different languages demonstrate the significance and continuity of the soul concept over time. They emphasize the mutual cultural and spiritual beliefs among Germanic communities, showing a shared recognition of the soul as a crucial and holy aspect of human life. Different religious and philosophical beliefs have varying ideas about the soul. Some believe that only humans have souls that live forever, while others debate this idea, which may have been influenced by the philosopher Plato. Thomas Aquinas, an important figure in Christian theology, used Aristotle's book On the Soul to show that all living things have a soul, anima. Aquinas believed that only human souls can live forever, which distinguishes humans from other living beings. Other religions, such as Hinduism and Jainism, offer a diverse point of view on the soul. These conventions educate that all living things, from the most minor bacterium to the biggest well-evolved creature, are souls themselves, known as Atman in Hinduism and Jiva in Jainism. Concurring to these convictions, each soul has a physical agent in the world, the body, which serves as a vessel to encounter the karma gathered in that life. This implies that the genuine self is the soul, whereas the body is just an instrument for exploring the fabric world. For illustration, when one sees a tiger, Hinduism and Jainism would propose that there is a self-conscious soul dwelling inside it, whereas the tiger's body is the physical sign of that soul. This viewpoint energizes a significant regard for all living creatures, as each is seen as a soul with its possessed travel and experiences. Additionally, a few conventions expand the concept of the soul past organic substances. Animism is the conviction that non-biological things, such as streams, mountains, and other normal highlights, have souls. This worldview sees the whole characteristic world as lively and interconnected, with otherworldly quintessence display in all viewpoints of the environment. Animistic convictions are frequently found in innate societies and emphasize a profound association and love for nature. These assorted understandings of the soul highlight the wealthy embroidered artwork of human thought with respect to the substance of life and awareness. Whether seen as an godlike substance interesting to people, a widespread rule shared by all living things, or a soul show in all components of nature, the concept of the soul remains a central and profoundly significant viewpoint of numerous devout and philosophical conventions. This assortment of convictions underscores the all-inclusive journey to get at our inward selves and our put in the world. Ancient Close East. In the old Egyptian religion, the conviction was that a person was composed of different components, both physical and otherworldly. This complex understanding of the self was not interesting to Egypt but was too found in the antiquated Assyrian and Babylonian religions. One eminent illustration is the Khtamua stele, a funerary landmark from the 8th century BCE having a place to an illustrious official named Katamuwa from Samal, modern-day Turkey. This stele incorporates an engraving in which Katamuwa demands that his grievers honor his memory and his life following death with feasts, for my soul that is in this stele. This engraving is one of the most punctual known references to the soul as an unmistakable substance partitioned from the body, highlighting an early conceptualization of the soul's presence past physical death. The Katamuwa stele, weighing around 800 pounds, 360 kilograms, stands 3 feet, 0.91 meters tall and 2 feet, 0.61 meters wide. It was revealed amid the third season of unearthings by the Neubauer Endeavor of the Oriental organized in Chicago, Illinois. This critical discovery gives profitable bits of knowledge into the old close Eastern convictions around the soul and the afterlife. In Old Egyptian iconography, the souls of Pe and Nekhen, speaking to Upper and Lower Egypt, are delineated towing the illustrious freight boat on a help in Ramesses II's sanctuary at Abydos. This symbolism reflects the significance of the soul in Egyptian thought and its necessarily part in the travel through the afterlife. These antiquated convictions around the soul outline the assorted ways distinctive societies have conceptualized the quintessence of life and the life following death. The acknowledgement of the soul as an isolated substance from the body in these early civilizations underscores a common human crave to get at the nature of presence and the progression of the self past physical passing. Through landmarks like the Katamuwa stele and the wealthy imagery in Egyptian craftsmanship, we pick up a more profound appreciation of how our predecessors hooked with these significant questions, laying the foundation for numerous other worldly conventions that followed. Bahai faith. The Bahai confidence offers a significant point of view on the nature of the soul. It states that, the soul is a sign of God, a brilliant pearl whose reality the most learned of men hath fizzled to get a handle on, and whose riddle no intellect, be that as it may intense, can ever trust to disentangle. Concurring to Bahai lessons, enunciated by Baha'u'llah, the soul is not as it were a pivotal viewpoint of human presence but is moreover undying, proceeding to live after the physical passing of the body. In the Bahai see, the states of paradise and hell are caught on allegorically or maybe then as physical places. Paradise speaks to the soul's closeness to God, whereas hell means a state of being removed from God. These conditions are seen as common results of one's otherworldly advancement. If an individual makes endeavors to develop profoundly and adjust themselves with divine lessons, they move closer to God, encountering a state associated to paradise. On the other hand, ignoring otherworldly development comes about in a sense of partition from God, associated to encountering hell. Baha'u'llah too instructed that souls do not exist sometime recently their natural lives, they come into presence at birth. The soul's travel is continuously coordinated toward God, moving absent from the fabric world. This otherworldly advancement is in continuous prepare, reflecting a persistent endeavoring for a more profound association with the divine. The Bahai lessons emphasize the interminable nature of the soul and its natural association to God, highlighting the significance of otherworldly improvement and the transformative control of divine adore and direction. This viewpoint energizes people to center on their otherworldly development, understanding that their activities and endeavors in this life shape their involvement in the future, drawing them either closer to or encourage absent from the divine presence. Buddhism. In Buddhism, the conventional tenet concerning the soul, self, or sense of self sets that it does not exist as an isolated, lasting substance. This conviction is typified in the concept of an Atman, or non-self. Agreeing to this convention, there is no persevering, perpetual self inside people. Instead, what we consider the self is a collection of always changing physical and mental components. This rule is closely related to two other key Buddhist lessons, anicca, the impermanence of all things, and dukkha, the enduring experienced by living creatures. Buddhism educates that connection to the thought of a changeless self and to the impermanent viewpoints of presence leads to enduring. By understanding and tolerating the impermanence of all things and the non-attendance of a changeless self, one can start to lighten this suffering. A concept that in some cases causes perplexity is Buddha nature. Whereas it might be confused as alluding to a genuine self or soul, it really must be caught on inside the system of an Atman. Buddha nature alludes to the characteristic potential for illumination inside all creatures. This potential does not infer a changeless self but or maybe the capacity to realize the genuine nature of presence and achieve Buddhahood. The teachings of Atman, Anitya, and Dukkha shape the establishment of Buddhist thought and hone. They direct specialists in understanding the nature of presence and the way to overcoming enduring. By letting go of the connection to an untrue sense of self and recognizing the impermanent nature of reality, Buddhists accept one can accomplish a state of freedom and extreme peace. Christianity. In Christian eschatology, the destiny of the soul after passing is a central topic. Agreeing to numerous Christian conventions, when individuals kick the bucket, their souls are judged by God and sent either to paradise or to Hades to anticipate the restoration. This conviction is shared by the most seasoned branches of Christianity, counting the Catholic Church, the Eastern Standard Church, and the Oriental Conventional Churches, as well as numerous Protestant denominations. However, inside Protestant Christianity, there are shifting translations of what happens to the soul after passing. A few Protestants subscribe to Christian conditionalism, which sets that the dead have no cognizant presence until after the restoration. In this the soul is synonymous with life itself, and it does not stay dynamic or mindful until it is resurrected. Another conviction held by a few Protestants is annihilationism, which educates that the souls and bodies of the unrighteous will be crushed in hell or maybe then enduring interminable torment. This contrasts with the conventional sea of unceasing discipline, recommending instead that the unrighteous will desist to exist. Then again, devotees are guaranteed interminable life, which they will spend either in paradise or in a kingdom of God on soil, getting a charge out of eternal partnership with God. Paul the Apostle's writings contribute significantly to Christian understandings of the soul. He used the Greek terms psyche, psy-upsilon-chi, and pneuma, pi nu epsilon mu alpha, to distinguish between different aspects of existence. These terms correspond to the Hebrew nephesh, meaning soul, and ruah, meaning spirit, as seen in the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. For example, in Genesis 1 verse 2, ruah Elohim is translated as pneuma theou, pi nu epsilon nu alpha theta epsilon omicron, meaning the Spirit of God. Christians generally believe in the existence of the soul and its eternal nature. This belief underscores the significance of the soul's destiny, emphasizing the importance of living a life in accordance with God's will to attain eternal fellowship with Him. The variety of views on the soul's fate highlights the diversity within Christian theology and the rich tapestry of beliefs that have developed over centuries. These doctrines illustrate the central role of the soul in Christian thought, influencing not only eschatology but also ethics, morality, and the understanding of human nature. Whether seen as enduringly conscious, awaiting resurrection, or ultimately facing annihilation, the soul remains a fundamental concept in exploring the mysteries of life, death, and the hereafter in Christianity. Origin of the soul. The origin of the soul has long been a challenging question in Christianity, leading to the development of several major theories: soul creationism, traditionism, and pre-existence. Soul creationism posits that God creates each individual soul directly, either at the moment of conception or at some point thereafter. Traditionism suggests that the soul is inherited from the parents through natural generation. The pre-existence theory holds that the soul exists before conception. There is also debate over whether human embryos possess souls from the moment of conception or if there is a specific point between conception and birth when the fetus acquires a soul, consciousness, and personhood. These differing views significantly influence ethical perspectives on the morality of abortion. Trichotomy of the soul. Some Christians espouse a trichotomic view of humans, which characterizes humans as consisting of a body, soma, soul, psyche, and spirit, pneuma, wink with a frown 17. However, the majority of modern Bible scholars point out how the concepts of spirit and of soul are used interchangeably in many biblical passages, and so hold to dichotomy, the view that each human comprises a body and a soul. Paul said that the body wars against the soul, for the word of God is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, and piercing as far as the division of soul and spirit, Heb 4:12 NASB, and that, I buffet my body, to keep it under control. Tota in toto corpore. According to Thomas Aquinas, a prominent theologian and philosopher in Christian thought, the concept of the soul is encapsulated in the Latin phrase, tota in toto corpore. This phrase signifies that the soul is entirely present in every single part of the human body, making it ubiquitous throughout. Aquinas argued that the soul cannot be confined to a specific organ, such as the heart or brain, nor can it be separated from the body during life, except upon the body's death. Aquinas's perspective on the soul reflects a holistic understanding of human existence, emphasizing the inseparable unity of body and soul. This unity implies that every part of the body is animated and infused with the presence of the soul, which gives life and vitality to the entire organism. Similarly, in his theological work, De Trinitate, Augustine of Hippo expounds upon the nature of the soul, stating that it is all in the whole body and all in any part of it. Augustine's assertion underscores the comprehensive nature of the soul's influence over the body, suggesting that while the soul pervades the entire body, it is also fully present and active in each individual part. Both Aquinas and Augustine's lessons have had significant suggestions for Christian religious philosophy and reasoning, forming discourses on the nature of human creatures, awareness, and the relationship between body and soul. Their experiences proceed to incite consideration and talk about inside philosophical circles, advertising wealthy viewpoints on the principal perspectives of human presence and spirituality. Views of different denominations. In Roman Catholicism, the concept of the soul holds noteworthy philosophical significance. Concurring to the Show Catechism of the Catholic Church, the term soul alludes to the deepest perspective of people, speaking to what is most profitable and fundamental in them, and is the center component that reflects God's picture inside humankind. The soul is portrayed as the otherworldly rule that recognizes people from simply fabric beings. In Catholic tenet, all souls, both living and expired, will confront judgment by Jesus Christ upon his return to soil. The Church instructs that each person's soul owes its presence totally to God, emphasizing that the otherworldly and undying soul is made promptly by God. This conviction underscores the divine beginning and interminable nature of the soul, highlighting its central part in the Christian understanding of human character and destiny. These lessons reflect the Catholic point of view on the soul as a sacrosanct and necessarily angle of human presence, personally associated to the divine and subject to divine judgment. The conviction in the prompt creation of the soul by God emphasizes the significant duty and veneration conferred to each person's otherworldly pith inside the system of Catholic theology. In Protestantism, convictions almost the soul and its destiny after passing change, with two essential points of view impacting religious thought on the great beyond. One viewpoint, affected by John Calvin's lessons, states that the soul remains cognizant after passing. Agreeing to this the soul proceeds to exist in involvement mindfulness in a middle-of-the-road state between physical passing and last resurrection. Conversely, another viewpoint, established in the lessons of Martin Luther and grasped by a few Protestant groups, sets that the soul ceases to exist deliberately after passing. This proposes that the soul rests or remains in a state of obviousness until the restoration of the dead, when both body and soul are rejoined and judged. These disparate convictions inside Protestantism reflect varying translations of scriptural sections and religious conventions. Whereas both points of view assert the presence and, in numerous cases, the eternality of the soul, they contrast essentially on whether the soul remains cognizant or oblivious between physical passing and the last judgment. These religious contrasts have suggestions for understanding the nature of passing, the encounter of the soul after withdrawing from the body, and the extreme trust of revival and interminable life inside Protestant Christianity. They contribute to a wealthy embroidered artwork of convictions and hones inside the broader Christian convention, highlighting the differences of thought and elucidation among Protestant communities. Adventism. In the Lessons of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Holy People or Mormons, the concept of the soul is caught on as the union of soul and body, depicted briefly as the soul and the body are the soul of man. This conviction recognizes Mormon philosophy from numerous other Christian traditions. According to Latter-day Holy Person teaching, each human soul is composed of a pre-existing soul, made by God, and a mortal body shaped through physical conception on soil. This union starts at birth and proceeds through life and into the life following death. Upon passing, the soul enters the soul world, where it proceeds to develop and advance until the time of revival. Amid revival, the soul and body are rejoined, coming about in a culminated, God-like soul able of encountering interminable delight and fulfillment. Latter-day Holy Person cosmology presents the concept of insightful, which are crucial components of awareness and organization. These keen are considered co-eternal with God and invigorate the spirits made by Him. The combination of an insights with a recently made soul body constitutes what is named as a soul birth, strengthening God's part as the Father of our spirits. This conviction framework underscores the unceasing nature of the soul in Mormon philosophy, highlighting its movement from pre-existence through mortal life to possible restoration and unceasing life. The understanding of the soul as a union of soul and body reflects the all-encompassing sea of human character and potential inside the system of Latter-day Holy Person convictions, emphasizing both the divine roots and the interminable fate of each person's soul. Atman, Hinduism, and Jiva. In Hindu logic, the concept of Atman, Sanskrit, holds significant centrality, signifying the internal self or soul of a person. Inside the Vedanta school of Hinduism, Atman is venerated as the crucial guideline and the genuine substance of an individual, rising above unimportant distinguishing proof with outside wonders. To accomplish freedom, moksha, one must accomplish self-knowledge, atmajnana, which includes realizing that Atman, the genuine self, is indistinguishable to the other-worldly self known as Brahman, particularly emphasized in Advaita Vedanta. According to the 6 standard schools of Hinduism, Atman exists as the quintessence or self in each living being. This understanding supports Hindu lessons on the unceasing nature and interconnecting of all life, highlighting Atman as the center of person character and other-worldly realization. In Hinduism and Jainism, a related concept is that of Jiva, Sanskrit, which alludes to a living being or any substance implanted with a life drive. In Jainism, Jiva is comparable to Atman in Hinduism, speaking to the person self. In any case, inside a few Hindu conventions, there is a refinement between Jiva as the person self and Atman as the widespread, perpetual self-show in all living creatures and everything else, which is supernaturally distinguished as Brahman. This qualification is now and then communicated as Jiva-Atman, meaning the soul inside a living body. The religious subtleties between these concepts reflect more profound philosophical investigations inside Hinduism and Jainism with respect to the nature of awareness, presence, and the extreme journey for otherworldly freedom and solidarity with the divine. Jain philosophy and Jainism and non-creationism. In Jainism, the concept of the soul, known as Jiva, is foundational and applies to each living being, extending from plants and microscopic organisms to people. Concurring to Jain lessons, the soul is unceasing and without starting or conclusion. It experiences non-stop changes until it accomplishes freedom from the cycle of birth and death. Jiva is respected as the godlike quintessence or soul of any living life form, whether human, creature, angle, or plant. Indeed, after physical passing, the soul holds on and proceeds its travel through the cycle of resurrections, known as samsara. The concept of a jiva in Jainism indicates substances that are not souls, including matter, counting the body, time, space, non-motion, and motion. Jainism categorizes souls into 2 fundamental states, samsari, which alludes to souls caught in the cycle of resurrection, and mukta, which indicates freed souls. The state of a soul is decided by its karma, the total activities and eagerly of an person's soul. In spite of the state of subjugation or freedom, all souls have the same inborn qualities and qualities. Liberated souls, known as siddha, have risen above all karmic bondages and completely show their inalienable qualities. Indifferentiate, non-liberated souls as it were somewhat show these qualities due to the impact of uncertain karma. A uncommon category inside Jainism is arihants, souls who have prevailed negative feelings and wants whereas still occupying physical bodies. They are venerated for their otherworldly accomplishments and serve as motivations for others on the way to liberation. Virchand Gandhi, an eminent Jain researcher, emphasized that the soul works freely of the body's impact. He enunciated that the reason of the body is to serve the soul, not bad habit versa. This viewpoint underscores the Jain conviction in the power of otherworldly advancement and the extreme freedom of the soul from common attachments. Jain lessons on the soul highlight its unceasing nature, its travel through samsara guided by karma, and the extreme objective of accomplishing freedom by rising above common connections and accomplishing otherworldly perfection. Soul dualism. The Neolithic Manungal burial bump found in the Taban caves of Palawan, Philippines, gives a see into antiquated convictions almost the soul and its travel to the soul world. Dating back to roughly 890 to 710 BCE, this artifact portrays a soul went with by a psychopomp traveling to the great beyond in a vessel, outlining early thoughts of otherworldly move and the progression of presence past death. Soul dualism, moreover known as different souls or dualistic pluralism, is a predominant conviction found over different social and devout conventions around the world, especially unmistakable in shamanism. This concept shapes an essential angle of hone such as soul flight, soul ventures, out-of-body encounters, bliss, and astral projection. It spins around the thought that people have two or more unmistakable souls, the body soul, or life soul, closely related with substantial capacities and awareness amid alertness, and the free soul, which has the capacity to wander unreservedly amid rest or changed states of consciousness. In numerous conventions, counting those of Austronesian people groups, Chinese culture, Huinanpa, Tibetan convictions, African societies, local North American conventions, old South Asian social orders, Northern Eurasian people groups, and antiquated Egyptians, Ka and Ba, soul dualism is indispensably. Each soul sort is credited with particular capacities and duties inside the system of otherworldly and cosmological beliefs. Among Austronesian societies, which include various inborn bunches over Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands, soul dualism is profoundly imbued in shamanistic hones and worldview. The Proto-Austronesian concept of *nawa alludes to the body-soul, ordinarily found in the stomach depth, regularly related with crucial organs like the liver or heart. In differentiate, the free soul, inferred from Proto-Austronesian *qanicu, dwells in the head and is associated to concepts of phantoms or spirits of the perished and other non-human spirits. The partition of the free soul from the body is accepted to happen amid different states such as rest, trance-like conditions, ridiculousness, madness, and passing. Sicknesses are frequently deciphered as occurrences of soul misfortune, where the free soul may be stolen by pernicious spirits or misplaced in the soul world. Mending hones among Austronesian shamans center on re-establishing concordance by recovering and reintegrating the misplaced soul into the body. Disappointment to return the free soul can result in passing or changeless craziness, highlighting the basic part of shamans as otherworldly healers and guides. In a few Austronesian social orders, such as among the Tagbanwa individuals, people are accepted to have numerous souls, counting as essential free soul considered the genuine soul, nearby auxiliary souls performing different capacities. This assortment reflects complex cosmological convictions and underscores the complex relationship between otherworldly and physical measurements of existence. Similarly, among the Inuit and Caribou Inuit bunches, convictions in numerous sorts of souls exist, with refinements between souls related with breath, shadows, and others associated to shamanistic hones. These convictions emphasize the differing qualities and abundance of social translations of the soul and its parts inside human experience. Overall, soul dualism and the assortment of souls speak to significant philosophical and other worldly concepts implanted in different social conventions around the world, advertising experiences into humanity's lasting journey to get at the nature of presence, awareness, and the travel of the soul past natural life. Taoism. In Chinese conventions, each individual is accepted to have two unmistakable sorts of soul, Han and Pa. Han is related with yang vitality, whereas Pa is related with yin vitality. Concurring to Taoism, there are encouraged subdivisions, collectively known as Sanheng Kipo, which interprets to 3 Han and 7 Pa. Han and Pa play significant parts in a person's otherworldly and physical well-being. It is accepted that losing any of these souls can lead to mental sickness or obviousness amid one's lifetime. Upon passing, the destiny of the soul changes. It may resurrect into a modern shape, possibly in lower want domains or with inabilities, or in a few cases, it may confront challenges in resurrecting altogether. This dualistic understanding of the soul in Chinese convention reflects deep-seated convictions in the interconnecting of otherworldly and physical presence, impacting Han's related to passing, grieving, and otherworldly development all through Chinese history and culture. In Greek mythology, Charon is portrayed as the ferryman who guides expired souls over the stream Styx to the black market, a part dating back to the 4th century BCE. From a philosophical viewpoint, the terms life and passing hold significant importance past their natural definitions. The soul, considered extraordinary of fabric presence, is accepted to have possibly unceasing life. Alternately, the passing of the soul is seen as an interminable state. In religious tenets concerning divine judgment, it is commonly held that God decides the destiny of souls, extending from entrance into paradise, with blessed messengers, to condemnation to hell, with devils, along with different otherworldly states in between. Both paradise and hell are ordinarily respected as interminable domains, existing distant past human concepts of life expectancy and time. According to Louis Ginsberg, a noticeable Jewish researcher, Adam's soul is considered to bear the picture of God, emphasizing the divine substance inalienable in humankind. Moreover, it is accepted that each human soul leaves from the body daily, climbing to paradise to recharge the body with unused life, as portrayed in different enchanted traditions. These philosophical viewpoints highlight the persevering otherworldly convictions over societies with respect to the nature, travel, and extreme predetermination of the human soul, reflecting significant philosophical and devout considerations on presence and afterlife. Philosophical views. In antiquated Greek logic, figures like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle profoundly investigated the concept of the soul, psy-kai, psykh, ascribing to it different resources and properties that characterize human presence. Socrates, broadly guarding himself at trial, emphasized that the soul's judicious staff is the most divine perspective of human activity, proposing that brilliance in things of the mind is fundamental over substantial goods. Aristotle explained advance, seeing the soul as the frame of the body, where the body speaks to the fabric components and the soul encapsulates the pith. The Greek term mind, determined from psychean meaning to breathe, envelopes a wide run of mental capacity such as reason, character, free will, feeling, awareness, memory, discernment, and considering. These resources are indispensable to understanding the nature of the soul in different philosophical frameworks, which may conceptualize the soul as mortal or immortal. Old Greek thought too seen the soul as the invigorating constraint that gives life to the body, frequently depicted as the breath or anima in Latin. Pindar famous that the soul is dynamic amid rest, affecting dreams that portend occasions of bliss or distress. Prior convictions, as examined by Erwin Rodi, proposed that the soul, once withdrawn from the body, dwelled in Hades without trust of return. Plato contributed altogether by joining these thoughts into a comprehensive system, characterizing the soul as both the mover and scholar of things. For Plato, the soul's part as the root of self-motion underscored its double nature as both the source of life and the situate of soundness, affecting consequent Western philosophical sees on the soul's complexity and importance in human existence. Socrates and Plato. Plato's tripartite hypothesis of soul. Drawing on the lessons of his coach Socrates, Plato said that the mind, or soul, constitutes the substance of a person, deciding human behavior. For Plato, the soul is incorporeal and interminable, enduring indeed after passing and able of thought. He presented the concept of metempsychosis, where the soul experiences non-stop resurrection into ensuing bodies. Aristotle, be that as it may, separated from Plato by stating that as it were the judgment skills, logos, inside the soul is immortal. Plato organized the soul into three unmistakable parts. Logos, intellect or reason found in the head, this portion of the soul is related with judiciousness and administers the other parts. Thymos, feeling or spiritedness situated close the chest locale, thymos relates to feelings, especially anger. Eros, want or craving found in the stomach, eros relates to wants and appetites. Plato compared the tripartite structure of the soul to a societal caste framework, where each portion must contribute concordantly for the entirety to work successfully. Logos acts as the controller of the other soul functions. Central to Plato's reasoning, the soul is urgent in his hypothesis of shapes and the convention of its eternality. Francis Cornford highlighted these as foundational angles of Platonism. Plato seen the soul not as it were as the source of life and judgment skills but too as the carrier of ethical excellencies. In different discourse like the Laws and Phaedrus, Plato investigated the soul's part in self-motion and as the situate of ethical character and cognition. Plato's experiences into the soul's multifaceted parts affected afterward Old and Medieval rationalities. His works, especially Phaedo, challenged researchers to hook with the complexities of the soul's nature and capacities, impelling continuous insightful talk about and investigation all through history. Aristotle. 384 to 322 BCE, created a comprehensive hypothesis of the soul, or sush, psy kai, inside his philosophical system, centering on its nature and capacities as inborn to living creatures. Not at all like Plato, Aristotle said that the soul is not an isolated substance from the body but or maybe the, to begin with fact, of a normally organized body. This implies that the soul is the substance that actualizes the possibilities inborn in a living organism. According to Aristotle, the soul's essential work is to encourage the full actualization of a living thing. For case, the soul of an eye empowers it to see, which is its reason or last cause. So also, the soul of a human being permits for the fulfillment of a completely useful human life guided by reason, a workforce Aristotle considered interesting to humankind. This concept ties the soul closely to the body, as the organization of frame and matter fundamental for any characteristic being to work and accomplish its goals. Aristotle categorized the resources of the soul into diverse levels of organic action, comparing to the progressive levels of common creatures, plants, creatures, and people. These resources incorporate nourishment, development, particular to creatures, reason, particular to people, and different sensations. Each workforce, when worked out, speaks to the moment fact or fulfillment of the capacity to be alive. In his work, De Anima, on the soul, Aristotle portrayed three levels of soul comparing to these progressive levels of creatures: bios, life, zoe, quickened life, and sush, self-conscious life. Plants have the bios, which incorporates nutritive exercises like development and generation. Creatures have zoe, which incorporates self-willed rationale exercises and tangible resources. People have sush, which incorporates reason, empowering them to lock in judicious thought and deliberation. While Aristotle's see on the eternality of the soul is regularly differentiated with Plato's conviction in its unceasing nature, there is discussion with respect to his position. In the 5th chapter of the 3rd book of De Anima, Aristotle presents the concept of the dynamic judgment skills, or dynamic intellect, which a few decipher as undying and interminable. This equivocalness has started wrangles about among researchers almost Aristotle's extreme position on the soul's immortality. Aristotle's investigation of the soul's capacities and its relationship to the body laid the establishment for ensuing philosophical request into the nature of awareness, reason, and human character. His complex investigation of the soul proceeds to incite academic dialogue and remains a foundation of Western philosophical thought. Avicenna and Ibn al-Nafis. Following in the strides of Aristotle, Avicenna, Ibn Sina, and Ibn al-Nafis, and Middle Easterner doctor, extended upon and refined the Aristotelian understanding of the soul, each contributing particular speculations that impacted consequent philosophical and philosophical discourse. Avicenna, known for his broad works in reasoning and medication, presented a few noteworthy thoughts with respect to the soul. He recognized between the soul and the soul, emphasizing that the eternality of the soul stems from its inborn nature or may be then serving a specific reason. Avicenna's teaching on the soul, especially his concept of the 10 scholarly, set the human soul as the 10th and last judgment skills, situating it inside a progressive system of other worldly entities. One of Avicenna's striking commitments was his thought explorer known as the drifting man, conceived amid his detainment. In this test, he welcomed perusers to envision themselves suspended in disgust, destitute of all tangible input, indeed from their possessed bodies. Avicenna contended that in spite of this tactile confinement, one would still have self-awareness, subsequently outlining that the concept of the self is free of physical sensations. This thought underscored his conviction that the soul is an essential given, a substance intrinsically particular from physical entities. Avicenna's sees on the soul impacted afterward masterminds, counting René Descartes, who disentangled and adjusted Avicenna's contention into epistemic terms. Descartes broadly expressed, I can unique from the supposition of all outside things, but not from the supposition of my possess awareness, resounding Avicenna's accentuation on the supremacy of self-awareness. In Differentiate, Ibn al-Nafis separated from Avicenna and Aristotle on certain focuses with respect to the nature of the soul. Dismissing Aristotle's idea that the soul begins from the heart, Ibn al-Nafis contended that the soul is associated comprehensively to the whole body, or maybe than being localized in one organ. He criticized the thought that each special soul requires a one-of-a-kind source, such as the heart, stating instead that the soul is related essentially to the aggregate of the body's personality arranged to get it. Ibn al-Nafis characterized the soul essentially as what a human shows by saying, I, emphasizing its bound-together nearness all through the whole body. Avicenna and Ibn al-Nafis in this way contributed particular viewpoints to the continuous philosophical exchange on the nature of the soul, impacting consequent masterminds over different conventions and clearing the way for encouraged investigation into transcendentalism, awareness, and self-awareness. Their experiences proceed to reverberate in modern discourses on the mind-body issue and the nature of human identity. Thomas Aquinas. In the strides of Aristotle and Avicenna, Thomas Aquinas, 1225–1274, built upon their thoughts to create his claimed comprehensive understanding of the soul inside the setting of Christian religious philosophy and Aristotelian philosophy. Aquinas, regularly alluding to Aristotle as the logician, said that the soul is the to begin with reality of a living body. This concept adjusts with Aristotle's see that the soul is the frame of the body, giving it life and organizing its exercises. Building on this establishment, Aquinas categorized life into three various leveled orders: plants, which have nutritive capacities; creatures, which include sensation to the operations of plants; and people, who have judgment skills and expansion to sensation. In his epistemological hypothesis, Aquinas contended that the soul is not mortal since the knower gets to be what he knows. If the soul were bodily, at that point when it knows a bodily thing, that thing would gotten to be portion of it. Subsequently, the soul's operation does not depend on substantial organs, permitting it to exist autonomously of the body. Besides, Aquinas proposed that the level-headed soul of human creatures is a subsistent shape, meaning it is not composed of matter and frame and in this way cannot be crushed through common processes. Aquinas expounded on the eternality of the soul in his work, especially in Address 75 of the To Begin With portion of the Summa Theologica. He asserted the teaching of the divine radiation of the soul, the specific judgment after division from the body, and the last restoration of the substance. These convictions were grounded in Aquinas' elucidation of Christian religious philosophy, where the soul is seen as particular from the body and able of existing past physical death. Aquinas too enunciated a special tripartite structure of the soul, drawing from Aristotle's thoughts. This structure incorporates a nutritive soul, dependable for essential life capacities, a touchy soul, which includes tangible discernment and feelings, and a mental soul, interesting to people, which incorporates the other two and is competent of reason and judgment skills. Aquinas accepted this mental soul is made by God and makes the touchy soul morally sound, guaranteeing its immortality. In Rundown, Thomas Aquinas synthesized Aristotelian logic with Christian philosophy to create a comprehensive hypothesis of the soul that included its immateriality, its part in human cognition and ethical quality, and its predetermination past physical passing agreeing to Christian lessons. His commitments altogether impacted consequent Western philosophical thought on the nature and interminability of the soul. Emmanuel Kant. In his investigation of level-headed brain research, Emmanuel Kant, 1724–1804, presented a particular viewpoint on the nature of the soul, especially emphasizing it as the crucial I or self. Kant's philosophical system, grounded in supernatural vision, drawn nearer the soul as the locus of internal involvement and self-awareness. Kant's position on the immateriality of the soul is nuanced. He contended that it is incomprehensible to demonstrate a priori, from hypothetical standards, that the soul is irrelevant. Instead, Kant thought that what can be attested is that the properties and activities ascribed to the soul cannot be clarified exclusively by materiality. This refinement adjusts with Kant's broader philosophical venture, which looked for to set up the limits and conditions of human knowledge. According to Kant, the soul, or I, serves as the premise for supernatural rationalization. This includes the basic examination of how information is organized and the conditions beneath which it is conceivable. Kant's approach to sound brain research does not point to assert the presence of the soul through experimental or mystical proofs but or maybe to portray its part inside the system of human cognition and self-understanding. In down-to-earth terms, Kant cautioned that whereas supernatural rationalization can light up the boundaries of what can be known, it remains compelled by these limits. This point of view underscores Kant's see that understanding the nature of the soul, and in fact all supernatural request, must recognize and regard the boundaries of human understanding and experience. In Rundown, Kant's discourses on level-headed brain research highlight the soul as the center, I, or self, central to internal involvement and self-awareness. His approach abstains from demonstrating the immateriality of the soul a priori but instead centers on portraying its conceptual need and impediments inside the system of supernatural philosophy. Psychology. Otto Rank's investigation of soul conviction speaks to a noteworthy flight from logical psychology's more doubtful position on the presence of the soul. Rank seen soul conviction as a basic component crossing primitive, classical, and cutting-edge social orders, reflecting advancing states of mind towards otherworldly existence and immortality. Rank contended that in the animistic time, the concept of the soul was effectively made and formed through mental forms. This time emphasized crediting life and awareness to common wonders and objects, encapsulating a developmental organize in human otherworldly advancement. In this way, in devout periods, the center moved to speaking to the soul as a central angle of individual personality and salvation. In Differentiate, Rank watched that modern common science has embraced a diverse approach, centering on understanding the person's soul through observational examination or maybe than expecting its presence by and large. He's seen this as a reflection of moving societal states of mind towards most profound sense of being and the soul over diverse epochs. Ranke's concept of Seelenglaube, or soul conviction, underscores the persevering human interest with eternality and other-worldly presence. His thoughts affected afterward scholars, eminently Ernest Becker, whose work in The Refusal of Passing drew upon Ranke's experiences to investigate the widespread human journey for eternality. Becker, reverberating Soren Kierkegaard's idea of the self, proposed that mental clutters like schizophrenia be deciphered as endeavors by people to rise above the restrictions forced by their limited physical bodies and interface with a more profound, more unceasing angle of existence, the soul or ground of being. Thus, Ranke's concept of soul conviction not as it were highlights the verifiable advancement of other-worldly thought but too welcomes reflection on how modern mental points of view shape our understanding of the soul and its importance in human life and death. Thank you for watching our video.